A percent is simply a fraction. Now, what kind of fraction is it? It's a special fraction where the denominator of that fraction is 100. Now, let's get a little bit deeper into that. If I tell you that a percent is simply a fraction with a denominator of 100, then that also means that if I am told I got 5% or something, then that simply means, oh, that's just 5 over 100. That's what it is as a fraction. If I'm told I have 20%, and I'm going to have to change this. All right, there you go. So if I'm told I have 20%, then that simply means I got 20 out of 100. Okay, that's it. So what did we just do there? Well, we just converted from a percentage to a fraction. That's it, right? So if someone tells you to convert from a percent to a fraction, something that you've been like crying over, stop crying now, because now you know, you just have to put it over 100. But do we stop there? Will you stop there? Well, the question is, after you do that, let's say I have 20 over 100, the question is this fraction in its simplest form? And what teachers might ask you to do is reduce this fraction, okay? Now, take a breath, let's keep going. I'm going to restate what I said earlier. A percent is simply a fraction where the denominator is 100. So that means that if I want to convert from a percent to a fraction, I simply need to put the percent over 100, or in other words, divide the percent given by 100. And then you can reduce that fraction, okay? And I just did it here. Now that's if they want you to convert from percent to fraction, all right? So we got that. Now, let's take a look at some examples of percent questions from your exam, from a BJC or a BGCSE. If I know that a percent is simply a fraction over 100, or a percent, fraction with a denominator of 100, how do I tackle a question in the BJC or BGCSE that asks me about percents? Well, let's take a look. Here's an example. This example is adapted from 2019 paper 2, question number 9, all right? Now, let's take a look. So it says, Mr. Jones purchased 80 pencils. It's a lot of pencils. He discovered that 15% of them were not working. Okay, 15% of them were not working. All right. The question says, how many pencils were not working? All right. Now let's take a look at the question, and I'm going to underline the things that are of importance. The question is asking how many were not working. All right, that's what we're trying to get to. But let's look at the important details in the question in the description above. So he purchased 80 pencils, right? So obviously the ones that were not working have to be coming from the 80 pencils. Yeah? All right. And then he discovered that 15% were not working. So in other words, I'm going to write out exactly what they're saying. They're saying that 15% of the 80 pencils are not working. Not working. That's what they're saying. All right, that's what they're saying. Now, let's move that information. And let's just take a look at what we see. 15% of 80. Now, in a previous session, we said that when you're looking at words in our questions, there are some words that indicate certain operations. And we'll see that come into play here. But let's deal with the percentage for a second. 15% is a percent. So we can convert that to a fraction or a decimal if we'd like to. But let's say I'm going to put it in a fraction form for now. So 15%, we said, is simply a fraction where the denominator is 100. So it's going to be 15 over 100. Now, once I introduce that 100 into the denominator, I'm going to get rid of the percent sign because literally I just converted it to a fraction. So it's no longer written in percent form. And then of in math represents multiplication. Okay? So literally what they're saying to you when they say, oh, I want you to find this percent of a number, they're literally telling you, multiply that percent over 100 by that number. That's what they're saying, but they're not saying it. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the math. I have my calculator with me. So we have 15 divided by 100 times 80. And that's going to be 12. So 12 of those pencils are not working. Now, can I convert this percent to a decimal? Yes, I can. But right now, we're going to keep moving. And if we have time at the end, I'll come back to it. But if not, then you'll just have to check out the channel at a video entitled Converting from Percents to Fractions to Decimals. All right, it's not up yet. I'll make sure I put it up by the end of the week. Okay. All right, let's keep going to the question. How many pencils were working? So if we know that 12 were not working, then the next step would be, okay, if 12 aren't working, well, how many do I have left? Well, I have 80 altogether. So I would say 80 minus 12. All right. And that gives me 68. So I have 68 working pencils. Awesome. Now let's take a look at the next question. He sold the good pencils for 50 cents each. How much did he make? Now let's think about what they're asking us. They're saying for every good pencil, he made 50 cents. So in other words, for the first pencil he sold, he got 50 cents. So 50 cents. For the second pencil he sold, he got 50 cents. So if I wanted to figure out how much he made for selling 2 pencils, he made $1 because 50 cents plus 50 cents is $1. For the third pencil he sold, he got another 50 cents. All right, so he has 50 cents total when he sold 1 pencil. He has $1 when he sold 2 pencils. He has $1.50 by selling 3 pencils and so forth. So what you're realizing is that I'm repeatedly adding the same amount of money every single time. And I'm going to add that 68 times. Now in math, repeated addition, whenever you see yourself repeatedly adding the same thing, then that's an indication that we're dealing with multiplication. All right. So to find our answer, we're simply going to multiply 68, which is how many pencils we're going to actually be able to sell, by the cost that we're selling it for. So that's 0.5. All right, times 0.5. And that's going to be $34. Okay, so we went through the whole question. Now, the whole thing didn't necessarily talk about percentages, but you saw how the percentages were brought into the question, right? So let's take a look at another example. I have 2 for you, okay? And then we're going to move on to the other section. So Mary purchased the items below from the store. Okay, complete the table to show each total. And I thought about completing the table for you to save time, but let's do it together. It's okay. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so it says the first item was 3 shirts and the cost was $25.50 each. That's an expensive shirt for some people, but $25.50 each. I hope it's a really nice quality shirt actually. And I'm buying 3 of them. So for the first shirt, I paid $25.50. For the second shirt, I'm paying an additional $25.50. And for the third shirt, I'm paying an additional $25.50. So what's happening? We're repeatedly adding the same thing every time. So if I'm repeatedly adding, that's telling me I need to multiply. Repeated addition is multiplication, all right? So we're going to do $25.50 multiplied by the 3 shirts, and that's going to be $76.50. So $76.50. All right. Now, if you want to, you can pause the video and try it on your own. I believe you can do it. Okay. And then you can continue the video if you want and see if your answers and mine add up. Okay. Now, the second row, it says 1 pair of tennis shoes for $89 per pair. Okay, so he only bought 1 pair, so he's only spending $89. Okay, so that's $89 and no cents. Now, I want to say that if you're not allowed to use a calculator, it's me writing this the way I'm writing this. Notice that I'm putting all the cents, or I'm lining up the decimal points. Writing it in that way makes it easier later for me to do the math, all right? So now the last one, it says 6 pairs of socks, and it's going to be $6.90 for 2 pairs. So for every 2 pairs I buy, I'm only spending $6.90. Well, if I am buying 6 pairs, there's 3 groups of 2 in 6. So I'm going to multiply 6.9 by 3 because for every one of those pairs, those groups anyway, I'm going to spend $6.90. So 6.9 times 3, and that's going to give me $20.70. All right, so this is how I'm filling out the table. Now, at the very bottom, it says total. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add everything in this last column here together to figure out what my total is. All right, so we have $20.70 plus $89 plus 76.5. All right, and that's 186.2. So 186.20, which is just 20 cents. All right, so now let's keep going. Now, the only reason I did the whole question is because at least you'll be able to see how you would tackle questions like this in the exam. Charts are a big thing in these exams as well, so being able to read them and understand what they want you to do is going to be important. So I would encourage you, if you have opportunity to, go ahead and look at a past paper and practice those charts, because a lot of the charts actually take up most of the marks on the exam. So if you can do well on the charting, you get a lot of points up front just by answering one or two of those more involved questions. All right, now it says VAT, value added tax, is calculated at 7.5%. How much money is charged for VAT? Now, whenever we talk about taxes are going to be a percent or going to be based on some total, okay? So 7.5% has to be based on some kind of total somewhere in the question, and it just so happens it's based on the total cost that they're going to be paying for these items. All right, so you're not going to choose some random number out of the sky and then do the percentage for. You're doing the percentage based on the total that you're being charged. So another way to think of it like this: when I go to Foot Locker, or any store for that matter, and I buy a bunch of things, what they're going to do is they're going to take everything I bought and they're going to add up all the cost of those items. And then whatever that cost is, they're going to add tax on that total, all right? And so that's the concept here. When you're calculating the tax, it's going to be based on the total of everything that you're going to buy. So let's go ahead and do this. So they want us to figure out 7.5% of 186.20. And once again, just like we did before, our percent is going to be over 100 if I'm going to use it as a fraction. So over 100. Once I do that, I can get rid of the percent sign, and of in math denotes multiplication. Okay, and so 7.5 divided by 100 times 186.2. If you want to convert your fraction to a decimal, you can go ahead and do that as well. All right, so what am I doing? Okay, 7.5 divided by 100 multiplied by 186.2. And we're going to get $13.96. Now, if some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, I'm only spending $13 for this? No, you're not. We're not done. We're not done. Let's go to, that's only the tax. In other words, that's how much they're adding on to the total of the items you're going to buy. So what is the total amount paid to the cashier? Well, it's going to be the tax that we just calculated plus the 186.20. Okay, so you're going to spend $200.17 in total.